Hello, how is everybody today? Welcome to Glazing with Amaco. I am Kara, and today I am going to talk about velvet underglazes and water etching and ways that you can make really colorful designs with water etching. So I do not have David here today. So it may be a little delayed with seeing comments, but please bear with me. So drop me a message if you'd like to, if you have any questions, if you'd just like to say hi. And if you use velvet underglazes or doing water etching. So this is a technique that works really well for both high fire and low fire clays and glazes. You can use this technique at any temperature range. Sorry. And as you can see from these, this is a rattle. I don't know if you can hear that. But the rattle does have underglaze and water etching. So Alice asks, explain what water etching is. And water etching is where you use some kind of material, usually wax, but it can also be, I've used acrylic gel medium. You can also use shellac. And you paint it onto the clay and then use a sponge to erode or sponge away the uncovered clay. Wherever the wax or the shellac is not, the clay will be sort of erased, and you'll end up with a slightly raised surface. If you have, looking around to see if I have an example, if you have any of our Celadon glazes on the label, some of the background label tiles have water etching as a texture. So it almost looks like calligraphy, but it's just an abstract pattern of shellac that was then etched. And water etching works great with the Celadons because it will show the texture really beautifully. So no other comments yet. And so that is what water etching is. But in this case, I'm going to use underglazes. So let me switch over to my overhead camera, and I'll show you what I will do here. So this can, one of the advantages of water etching is that it can be done on bone dry clay. So maybe you had wanted to do a textural thing, but your clay gets too hard. So you're stuck with doing something else. So I have my rainbow palette of underglazes. Now these are not exactly the colors that were used on these rattles. They're similar. So I start with my Radiant Red. And Radiant Red underglaze is absolutely an amazing underglaze. Let me make sure that I'm centered here. I'll I'll move my rattles a little bit to the side. So I'm going to use my Radiant Red and do a stripe along the top. Now because my clay is a little bit on the damp side, it's going to take a little while to dry. That's fine. So I'm going to do kind of a double rainbow effect here. Let that one set up a little bit. I'm going to move my water over so I can reach it. So there's my Radiant Red. I have Bright Orange. Now I'm pretty sure that these are Radiant Red and Bright Orange as well. And I'm doing this on 11M clay, which is a cone 5 clay. And as I said, this technique works for low fire or high fire. So Esther says, please, please, please address underglaze orange peel or bubbling. I've quit using because at cone 5-6 mine always bubbles, especially red and black. Esther, some of the underglaze colors will bubble and blister, and what I can tell you is that ultra black is less likely to blister regardless of which clear glaze you use. So if you want to try using ultra black, that should help with any bubbling or blistering that happens. And as for red, I assume that you mean the very tiny bubbles that happen sometimes. And what I have found is if you want a really, really clear coat, I know this is going to sound strange, but use HF10 Cone 5 Clear. It has zinc, and it actually works really, really well to with the red cadmium underglazes. So you will have less bubbling happening. I hope that helps. Good morning, Janet. Checking my messages. So I hope that helps, Esther. Now I'm going to go to Intense Yellow. Now, one of the reasons for using zinc-free clears is that a lot of the older green underglazes shift very dramatically when you use a clear with zinc. They do not like zinc very much. So we encourage people to use a zinc-free clear, especially because of those chromium greens. Because like avocado and light green will go just a really awful murky brown when they have zinc over them. Now, some colors actually like zinc. The old pinks liked zinc. Some of the newer, like light pink. Some of the newer pinks, however, are less sensitive to zinc, and so you can use some of the newer colors. Coral and blush are among them. Those are newer pinks. Doesn't matter. You can use them with or without zinc. And newer greens like pistachio and cactus, which I am going to use here in a minute. Pistachio. Also are not altered by zinc. So you can use pistachio or cactus and use the HF10 clear that has zinc. And the green will stay exactly the same. So these are newer formulations, and they work quite well. So I'm going to get a little bit more done. Now I do want to make sure you realize I am putting one coat on here, and then I'm going to let it dry, and then I will apply a second coat and let it dry, and then a third coat and let it dry. So I do want to get 3 thin coats, especially so the cactus and pistachio underglazes are really, really durable. They don't change color when, depending on your clear glaze. They'll still be green no matter how you fire them or how you glaze them. However, if you apply them too thick right off the bat, they can crack and sometimes peel off. So you want to make thin coats, not thick coats. What makes white bubble? I don't know. I have not had white bubble. Evelyn, Esther says, I do use ultra black, so I'll try HF10. I don't know what makes white bubble. And Evelyn said, it would be tremendously helpful if we could have a list of best clear for every underglaze. And Evelyn, actually, if you go to our website, amaco.com, and you look up the individual clears like HF9 and HF10, we actually do have information on which clears, which underglazes have any issues with them, or which underglazes work especially well with them. So it is on our website. But where it is under the clear glazes, not under the underglazes, if that makes sense. So here's my medium blue. I'm sorry I didn't show that one. This is V326 medium blue. Set that aside. And my last stripe is V379 ultraviolet. And this is a newer purple. It's a little bit more durable at higher temperatures. There we go. So, like a cooking show, I've actually prepared some things ahead of time. So I will set these aside. I'll finish this later. So that was one coat. So normally I'm in the studio, this would sit out and I would apply 2 and 3 coats. However, for the purposes of our live stream, it is difficult to watch all of that and watch glaze dry. So I am going to set these aside. Evelyn, I'm glad that you think that's great. I did put a lot of time into finding out which underglazes worked best. So I'm going to set this aside. And we did put that on our website a few years ago. So it's information that may not be easy to find, but it is there. So I have, let me see if I'm missing any other comments. Nope, not there. Nope, not there. So I have my dish, and this has 3 coats of each of those 6 underglazes. So I have my rainbow on here. And I have my Amaco Wax Resist. This is our newer formulation. And I do not want to shake it because I don't like when it gets all bubbly. So let me see, I've got to find the brush I want to use from wax. Now, unlike using paraffin wax, you do not have to have a special designated wax brush for using wax resist, because this does wash out with soap and water. And I just use regular dish soap, just a squirt of regular dish soap on my brush, and work it into the bristles, and it comes right off. So it is fantastic. So I'm going to do, I did hearts on another piece. I'm going to do stars on this one. I've been having some kind of 80s flashbacks with this, because that was the era that everything had rainbows and unicorns on it. But I don't trust myself to make a wax resist unicorn, so we're going to go with stars. So as I said, I don't really want to have bubbles because it causes some issues. One thing I can tell you about our wax resist, it really works best on commercial glazes and glazes that are meant for brushing, because it really needs to be on something that has gum in it. So if you're using a studio glaze or a dipping glaze, you may have some problems with the wax pulling that glaze right off. So what I recommend is, if you are using a glaze that does, or underglaze that does not have gum in it, you may need to add some gum if you're going to use our wax. Or another option is you can use liquid latex. Sorry, little moment there. Liquid latex works really well for resist techniques, and it will not pull off your studio glaze or glaze that does not have gum solution in it. So that's an option, and then you just take it off and when you're ready to fire, because you do not want to fire that on your pieces. I do have some other news for those of you who are tuning in regularly. We are going to be doing some giveaways coming up. We haven't done any giveaways for quite some time with all of our glaze supply chain issues. We just could not do giveaways. But many of you remember that we used to do lots of giveaways for new glazes, and we are going to get back to that. So we have some giveaways coming up. Janet asks, will Cricut cutouts stick for this application? I think so. I would give it a try. I'm not entirely sure if they'll work, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to give it a try on something. Just make a slab, like a little tile, and do a Cricut cutout on it and see if it works. Why not? Let us know. I would love to hear. So we have new glazes coming out, which I'm sure many of you know. We're coming out with the new Potter's Choice Flux. These are Cone 5/6 line of glazes. We have 6 new glazes, and we're going to have some giveaways. We're also going to have a challenge coming up, and you could win glazes this way. As thank you, Janet. Yes, let us know how it works. I should try that too, because we do have a Cricut machine. So recently, a coworker glazed some mugs and then challenged me to figure out what they were. And I did. Because I spend a lot of time glazing with Amaco glazes. So it gave me an idea. So in the next couple months, I think we're going to open a challenge for viewers to submit images, not directly to me, of course, submit images to our marketing department, and they will give me the images without any information about how they were done, and I will have to guess what the glazes are. I'm sorry, Janet. We'll see you soon. So this, now I want this to dry completely. So again, using our cooking show method, I have another one. This one is hearts. But you can see, if you look, you may see that there's some bubbles. So I'm a little worried about the bubbles. And it's possible that some of those bubbles may wash out a little bit. So now I use some clean water, and this is the messy part. I have some clean water. Just checking my messages real quick before we continue on. So clean water, clean sponge, and my piece with the dry wax on it. And this wax does dry pretty quickly, so don't worry too much about it taking a lot of time. And then gently, gently I sponge back the underglaze. So I have some hearts, I have some dots. You can do whatever shapes you like, anything. You know, you could do mandalas, anything that you can paint with wax. I think I should have made a lot more hearts and made them a lot closer together, but I think this is looking really fun. And since this is a white clay, so these will be rainbow hearts on a white clay background, but you could also do the same kind of thing with darker clay, with other kinds of backgrounds. And there we go. You start to see my rainbows, and then the wax will burn off in the bisque firing and leave me with these colorful hearts or stars or whatever my pattern is. Now keep in mind, one of the things is that since you are sponging away the top layer of clay, if you're using a gritty clay, like a raku clay or something that has a lot of grog or sand in it, you will end up with a gritty surface because you are removing all the finer clay particles. So this is a technique that if you don't want the surface to be gritty, to be rough, you should use a smooth clay body, like a porcelain or a smooth stoneware, something that does not have grog or sand in it. Because otherwise you will end up with a gritty surface. And there we go. I mean, that was fast and fun. And yes, Evelyn, this will be on YouTube. So yes, I hope that you can come back and check it out and see what you think. Let us know how it goes. This is one of my favorite, like, fun techniques, and like I said, it's great if you have a piece of greenware that got too dry to do other kinds of techniques with, because, like, if you tried to do sgraffito, you would, of course, chip it because it would be too dry. Mishima, much the same. For a lot of techniques, you need to have leather hard clay, but for water etching, it can be bone dry. So you don't have to worry about keeping your ware a certain moisture level. So that was so fast. So that was it for today. In 2 weeks, I'll be back and I'll be demonstrating how to glaze teapots, because I know that there's a lot of, I mean, just making teapots is complicated, but then trying to glaze them comes with its own set of difficulties. So I look forward to seeing you all next week for Q and Amaco. Bring me your questions. You can also send them to me ahead of time through Facebook, through the Amaco Brent profile, or through the Amaco Brent company page. So happy glazing, have a great week, and enjoy the season.